Hey, I'm Amanda from Trifecta Fitness. We're proud to be Clarksville's new Get Fit headquarters. Trifecta Fitness is a state-of-the-art spin and strength training studio. Our spin studio is truly one of a kind in this area, complete with 20 state-of-the-art live fitness bikes and an incredible sound system. Our strength training is done in small groups of 6 or fewer, and all of our strength and spin classes are scalable for every level of experience. Come see us in the heart of Clarksville, just behind MAPCO at the corner of Old Trenton Road and Wilma Rudolph Boulevard. Call us for more info at 931-542-6265 or download our Trifecta Fitness app for a full list of upcoming classes.
In October 2019, Arlington, Texas was chosen to be the home of a new national museum, unlike any other. The National Medal of Honor Museum will be a unique home of military history. The 100,000 square foot museum will house exhibits, archives, and artifacts relating to the 3,500 U.S. troops who have been awarded the medal, the nation's highest honor for valor in combat. The museum will have 31,000 square feet of galleries dedicated to U.S. troops who have received the award. The museum CEO, former Navy SEAL and NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy, said the museum will focus on education as much as preservation. The building will have 5 areas dedicated to Medal of Honor winners from the Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. The main gallery will be located in a central plaza under a 25,000 square foot slab of steel, which will appear to be suspended in midair. It will be supported by 5 pillars. Black Rifle Coffee is a corporate sponsor of the museum, as are the Dallas Cowboys. The museum's board also includes over a dozen major corporations and 6 Medal of Honor recipients, including David Bellavia, Patrick Brady, and Britt Slabinski. Army Staff Sergeant Bellavia was awarded the medal for clearing an entire house by himself on November 10, 2004, as a squad leader in support of Operation Phantom Fury in Fallujah, Iraq. He killed 4 enemy fighters and wounded a 5th in close quarters battle. Army Major General Brady flew and coordinated the evacuation of 51 seriously wounded men during a firefight in Vietnam in January 1968. Slabinski, a Navy SEAL chief and team leader, led a rescue team of SEALs during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan in March 2002. Slabinski and his team flew to a mountaintop ambush site to rescue Petty Officer First Class Neil Roberts, who had fallen from the back of a helicopter. Slabinski led the team through almost constant combat against an entrenched Taliban force. Along with the board members, former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama serve as honorary directors. The museum.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
All right. The ToosDay Crue is here, hosted by Stephen LaMonica and Jake Collin. It is a Misfit Nation production that brings powerful stories of grit, resilience, and leadership to life. Stephen is a business leader and YouTube consigliere. He ensures the show runs smoothly, providing real-time feedback and maintaining discipline during live broadcasts. Jake, a 25-year Army veteran and former EOD tech. We call him Hurt Locker. We call him Lacey. Offers deep insights from his extensive service, which includes multiple combat deployments and VIP missions around the globe. Together, they welcome guests from diverse backgrounds to share their journeys, inspiring listeners with stories of overcoming adversity and leading with purpose. Whether you're tuning in for the insightful discussions or to enjoy Steven's passion for NASCAR or Jake's anecdotes from his farm in Kentucky, the ToosDay Crue delivers a unique blend of entertainment and inspiration every week. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ToosDay Crue! All right. It's Tuesday. The crew is live after technical difficulties. They are here tonight and they're ready to rock. First, we have to lay down some memorial stuff for you. USMC veteran and police officer Jacob Camden Noza was shot and killed during a traffic stop on December 8th. His end of watch was December 9th. He was with the Terrell Police Department in Texas. Keep him in your thoughts, him, his family, his friends in your thoughts and prayers. And also Master Sergeant Ryan McCarthy of the 3rd Special Forces Group. His last day with us till he went to Valhalla was December 1st, 2024, and he passed at Fort Liberty. So keep them in your thoughts and prayers as you move forward through this holiday season, this month of December. And now, without further ado, we bring you Jake, we bring you Lacey, we bring you Steve, or also known as Cagney. The mood is right, the time is now, it's the ToosDay Crue!
Thank you, Mr. The Nation, for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah, truthfully, I think he's still riding high from Notre Dame making the playoffs. I know I am. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. I had a big old bowl of roast and potatoes and carrots and mushrooms that Mrs. Holland had prepared when I got home. It was quite tasty.
Nice. That's always good.
Sorry about the technical difficulties that I couldn't get in the green room earlier. I was trying out a new device and it really don't want to work that well. So I'm going to have to do some further testing with it.
Yeah, we were discussing that the other day. And how I can only go through one way to get into StreamYard and it doesn't work another way. We got to figure these things out.
Yeah.
Baby steps. We're trying.
We're trying. Hey, without any further ado, let's talk about Mr. John David Grisham.
Graham.
He's done a lot of amazing things in his life, and quite recently, he's the founder of Good Samaritan Home, which is a housing and mentoring home for men and women restart their lives after prison. I think that is a wonderful endeavor. I'm not saying that everyone can be rehabilitated, but there are those that, they might have done a little bit of something. And being institutionalized for 25 years of my life, I can understand how prison would definitely institutionalize you, and you would have to have some kind of mentoring to come out of that. He's also been a door-to-door salesman, children's home counselor, substitute school teacher, truck driver, fireman, building contractor, a minister, and a journalist. Man, that's more than anyone should be able to pack into their life.
That is just one big background right there.
It is. It is.
He's tried every aspect and said, okay, this is what I'm settling on.
Add walk on water to that, and we can say, hey.
Well, when we bring him in, we'll ask him if he has walked on water. He might have. I don't know.
Now, so far, I only know one person that's ever done that. Well, shoot, let's get him in here.
Good evening, John.
Hi.
How are you?
Gentlemen, about walking on water, the trick is knowing where the rocks are. Yeah.
So you
I
have
assure
done
you,
it.
I don't walk on water without rocks.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay.
You don't have the Back to the Future hoverboard. You can just go across.
No, no, I'm sorry. My feet are very, very much made of clay. So,
So Jake
you know,
gave the roundabout 10-second background about you. Let's hear from you. You go back as far as you want. Tell us about you.
well, let me just say that I was watching the Medal of Honor presentation. It was extremely impressive, and what it reminded me of was in the '60s when I grew up and I was in school. It was an extremely difficult time because the country was torn apart, no matter what side of the political spectrum, and it made it very difficult for a lot of us to, particularly when it capstoned in Watergate, because we just felt like the country was coming apart. We had assassinations, we had bombings. And so I came out of that with a great deal of misdirection. And I went from one career to the next to the next. I'm not a drinker, I'm not an addict, but I certainly didn't know what to do with my life. And I went from one thing to another to another. And I was 53 years old, and I had taken my family from state to state. I'm familiar with Kentucky, and I'm familiar with everything down I-75 all the way down into Texas, trying to find work. And at 53, I finally said, maybe we can help people who need more help than us. And so we ended up opening up a homeless shelter for people who had even fewer options than I had had. And one thing led to another. And all my backgrounds, ironically, came into play with Good Samaritan Home, the nonprofit I started, because my construction background, my journalism background, my public speaking background, it all helped me promote Good Samaritan Home. And eventually we were able to connect with the Ohio Department of Correction, and they asked us if we would help low risk men coming from prison who needed housing temporarily. Because the research says that if you have temporary housing, you can get a job, then you can get your own apartment, then you can pay child support, then you can pay taxes. So that's rehabilitation. So the state says we don't want to pay $109 a day for someone in jail. We would rather have them out paying me taxes. And so it was a program that the Republicans could approve because it's fiscally responsible, and the Democrats could approve because it's morally conscious. So everybody was benefiting. And we started off with just my wife and I using a part of our house as a shelter. And 23 years later, we now have 19 houses, and we have housed nearly 2,500 men and women and helped them get back on their feet. So it's been my life work in a way I never saw happening, but I've also felt like I've been part of something that made a difference in our community.
Did you say 2,500?
2,500.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah, housing is critically important. So we don't necessarily do counseling or any of that. What we do is simply give you a safe place so that you can go out and get a job and know that when you come back, you're not going to be sleeping on the street. And that's very, very important in rehabilitation.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Now, is your main place in Ohio now, or?
Yeah. I'm actually bi-coastal, if you can call it that. I had done construction in Texas, and I like to call Texas a second chance place because historically it's always been where people come to restart their lives. Davy Crockett's the best example. The Tennessee legislator kicked him out, so he came to Texas because he said the people of Tennessee can go to hell. I'm going to Texas. And of course, 3 weeks later, he died, but we won't speak of that. But the thing here about Texas is I was able to start my construction business. So when I wanted to write what I call my second chance story, my novel, I came back to Texas and I do my writing here. And then I just travel back to Ohio where my staff does most of the day to day. But I'm still in Ohio and I'm still in Texas.
Okay.
So right now I'm in Texas.
All right.
Well, that's great.
your
Now,
book, Running as Fast as I Can. I must admit I haven't read it, but I was looking through. That thing's got a whole bucket full of awards.
Yeah. Here's the best part. When I published that novel last year after 200 rejections from agents and publishers, and that to me is a story in itself, because it's very, very easy to give up. And I kept rewriting, I kept editing, I kept submitting, and I kept getting rejections. And finally, I said, I know this is a good story. The reviews coming back were very positive, but I couldn't break into New York. So what I did was I formed a publishing company called Don Quixote Press, and it's meant for outsiders like me and for people who can't catch the inside break. And when we published that a year ago, it immediately took off, and we've garnered 26 awards with that novel. And what is most impressive is that readers have said, I identified with Daniel, the main character. I felt the emotion. Or one 91-year-old man said, I was up till 3 a.m. reading that book. I couldn't put it down. That to me is the best thing I ever heard. It's the readers.
Oh, yes.
definitely the readers, yeah.
Your readers and fans. We had a question pop across it from Tyler Collins. Are you part of or affiliated with the CTC Community Transition Center in Lancaster, Ohio?
I know Lancaster, but no. We partner with the state of Ohio, the Department of Correction, but we're not officially a part of them. We are an independent housing provider.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Tyler.
So when you started the housing for people coming out of prison, was there a lot of resistance in the community?
I in my naivety, I thought if I just tell people we're doing this good thing, that they will simply gather around and say, thank you, how can we help? But the blowback was immediate and intense. Petitions, neighbors driving by yelling at us, people throwing cans at my porch, petitions to the city council, ordinances were passed. There were threats. I had a police protection going to one city council meeting, and It took us 7 years of legal battles, but eventually we were able to turn that around. Not with the legal issues. We didn't win in court, although we did. Where we won the people over was, and when the snows came, what I did was I took my snowblower and I did all the sidewalks in the area every time it snowed. And I never said a word, but we cleaned that neighborhood and we fixed up our old house. It's a 140-year-old Victorian, and we made sure it was the nicest house on the block. And I became what I call a neighborhood watchman, where if there was an issue, I made sure that I called the police on it so that our neighborhood was safe. And eventually, those same people who used to wave at us with one finger now use all their fingers. So I say the best sermon I ever preached had a snowblower on
it. That's amazing. And you know, a lot of the people that were resisting you, they're probably the same people griping to the city council that they don't want people standing on street corners, sleeping on steam grates, yada, yada, yada. But then you go open up a home for them. It's like, oh, no, not in my neighborhood. You're not, you know.
I had one woman say that she was planning to have more children, but because of me, she was afraid to have more children. So I thought it's that same fear we're seeing with immigrants right now. The rapists coming across the borders, or the Haitians that are eating our cats and dogs. It's just fear driven without information. And so the best thing to do is somebody has to be the adult in the room. And so I just tried to be a good neighbor. And one day, one house, one resident, eventually, I would say we won over slowly but surely. And now the local Department of Correction will call us, and the police department will call us and say, can you take this fellow into your home? He's homeless. So
Okay.
I calculate we saved the local government about $1 million in jail costs. So
I
Definitely.
I understand. I got a question from Ingrid Zbone on Google about your book. Running as Fast as I Can has won multiple awards and has been hailed as a masterpiece. What personal experiences inspired you to write this story, and how did you infuse such authenticity into it?
That's an excellent question. It's not my story directly, but obviously all fiction is rooted in reality. And I started writing notes or journal notes 50 years ago. And I just wrote my feelings. I call it cheap therapy. And I sat down 10 years ago to take those notes and tell a story. And I tried to take all the things I'd learned and the people I'd run into, but by and large, it follows my highway of left and right detours. But in the story, there are certain tragedies that occurred to the character that have not occurred to me, but they have occurred to people around me. And just without telling too much, it's a tearjerker story. So whoever reads it, keep the Kleenex handy because you will cry. I still cry when I read it. And I know the ending. But it's very cathartic. Writing for me, and I think it's true for all of us, is that just by getting it out, it's like my mind is blocked. And when I get my thoughts on paper, I just feel relieved. I feel relaxed. I feel as if suddenly that day had meaning and purpose. So writing is a very, very difficult but extremely rewarding process for me.
Well, it's to me, when I journal or do anything like that, it's almost like all the day's trouble go through my fingers and out through the end of that pen. And, they end up on the paper, but they all just kind of drain out through that pen. And it kind of works.
Now, the best thing about writing is that you get to write your own future. You can say to your friends, be nice to me, or you're going to be in my book, and it won't be good.
You hear that, Stephen?
I'll stop, Jake. I'm sorry.
I had my wife nervous for a couple of years there, but she came out good in this book.
That was probably smart on your part.
Very smart. I may not look smart, but there's a part of me that is.
We got another question that came in on X. It says, you've worn many hats throughout your life: salesman, fireman, minister, and now founder of Good Samaritan Home. How have these diverse roles shaped your perspective on life and your mission to help others?
I think I've never been in prison, but I'm very sensitive to people who have made mistakes because I've made many mistakes myself. And, not knowing what to do or how to do it, I was overeducated but underqualified. And that to me is the worst combination because you think you're better than you are. And if I had just had a good trade job in the beginning, if I had stayed as a fireman, I probably would have had a much smoother life. But I thought I was probably too smart. And it turned out that I was wrong. And I wasted a lot of years after that. So I think it brought in a lot of sympathy into the work that I do, because there, but for the grace of God, it could easily be me in one of my houses.
Oh, yeah. It's surprising how many people in our country are, one paycheck from being homeless, or, and that's just homeless. That's not counting being in prison. But, you get out of jail, if you don't have family to go to, you have nothing.
I call that being a double loser, because going to prison sets you apart, having lost out on a section of your life. But you get out of prison and you have no family, you're a loser again, double homeless. And
yes.
it makes it extraordinarily difficult. And I had a man named Jimmy who was 67 years old when he came to us. He battled schizophrenia, and he was living in his truck. It was in the winter. He was a vet. And the only thing that saved his life that night was the VA hospital, because he was freezing to death. And they called us and said, can you take him into one of your houses? And all we said was, we can take him if you were required he take his schizophrenia medication. And he did. And he came to us, and it was supposed to be for a short stay until he stabilized. 14 years later, he was still with us. And he said, this was the only home I ever had. And he died at 81 in our house. He died a free man and a happy man. That to me is worth it all right there.
Yeah, that's definitely a good ending to a bad situation. That definitely is. Wow, we got questions rolling in just from everywhere. This is from at Heart 3 I Heart Men on X. Good Samaritan Home is a powerful initiative to help men and women restart their lives after prison. What challenges did you face in launching this program, and what impact have you seen so far?
I think the legal issues we had to face, I didn't mention it before, but at one point I had a man stab me on the courthouse steps. It was superficial wound, but it scared the hell out of me, because I realized how vulnerable we all can be. But he had been one of our former residents who was mentally ill. And what he was reaching out to and stabbing was not me. It was what he saw in his mind. But what happened was somebody wrote to the newspaper and said, we'd like to pay that man's bail so he could finish the job. That's the sort of hostility we faced. But that has all disappeared, as I said, through the snowblower type of approach. Mm-hmm. But what it taught me was I had no option. This was the only place I could go. This was the only place I could live. We had virtually no income at the time, so I couldn't move or take another job. So I had to stay. And what it taught me was that if you have a vision or a commitment, if you have a dream, if you stay with it, it will be hard. But if you're committed to it, do not look back and keep going. And I believe today, the reason the Good Samaritan is alive today is because we had no choice in the beginning, and we worked through those hard times. You like to think it's easy, just have a dream, go out and do it and pick up a grant, but it's terribly difficult. But we went very carefully through the wilderness into the promised land. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Now, are you privately funded, or do you take donations, or?
Well, we don't solicit donations, although people will sometimes send us something. What we do is, as a licensed contractor with the state of Ohio, we contract or partner with them for housing provider, and they pay us a per diem that is much less than jail, but it's enough to pay our bills. So if we have 5 men in a house, we get per diem, and that pays the mortgage, it pays the utilities, it pays staff. And as a nonprofit, we break even. And that's really all we wanted. That's all we wanted.
All right. Well, it's just good to see that you have that support there, and that the state is paying for that.
Well, part of it is it's not a popular program, because the fact that you're dealing with people who they've put themselves in a self-imposed exile. They're not victims. They have been victimizers. So there's little sympathy. So for us to get solicit donations would be difficult, because most people would not be inclined. But the state, the whole purpose of our government is to take care of the jobs that benefit the community, but may not necessarily be popular. Like recycling is not popular. Well, technically, that's what we're doing. We're recycling broken men.
Okay. Now you talked about your gentleman, Jimmy, I believe you said his name
Yes,
was,
sir.
that came, stayed with you for 14 years, died a free man. Yeah. What's another one of your big success stories that you've had?
The very first fellow we had come, his name was Reggie, and he came from Cleveland, and we were in a rural white small community near Dayton. And so there was immediate apprehension because this was during a lot of racial tension. And so he came into this white community out of prison, afraid of the white community, and the neighbors were afraid of him. And he stayed with us for give or take 6 months to a year, but he stayed in contact, and he eventually got a job, got married, and just last week he called me, and he'll touch base every year, and he says, I've never looked back, I've never gotten in any trouble, I've raised my kids, and I'm an over-the-road truck driver, and he said, I just read your book, and I want to tell you how much I appreciated it. So that to me said volumes, because he wasn't coming back asking for help. He was coming back as an equal. He was saying, I've made it. And he wanted to say thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
it felt good. It felt like it was all worthwhile.
Now, have any of your former residents written a book talking about their time that they spent with you?
No. Actually, what we deal with primarily, we have people, because of the fact they come to us with very few family options, and 60 to 80% have addiction issues, and many of them can't read or write.
Okay.
Yeah, we're basic, and many of them are looking for disability because of their either physical or mental limitations. But I had one fella, he clearly he had struggled, and he was generally considered violent. But for us, he was always gentle, and we called him Bear because he was so big. But he helped me move a refrigerator, and he became more of a protector for my wife when she was doing some work around the house. And I found him to be a very, very good man to work with. And I took him to lunch for helping me. And he had mentioned, I heard you wrote a book. I want to write a book too. Would you read it for me? But I said, of course, just send me the first chapter. Well, it turns out he can't read or write. So what he did was he sent me a memory stick with interviews that he had somebody do, and he told his story on those on that memory stick. Now, will it be a book? Probably not. But the fact is, he shared something with me that was very personal and very important. And I think eventually, somewhere, somehow, it could be part of a book.
Yes. And
like an insert, but it won't be the whole story. Yeah.
If
what I'd like to see somewhere is that in the back of my mind, I'm working on an anthology of short stories that each person can tell one short story, and that can become a book in itself. And I think that could work because it would give voice to some people who have no voice. And then we could publish that through Don Quixote Press because it's already an established publisher. So I'm working real hard on that idea over the Christmas break.
Okay.
That sounds like it would be something amazing, just putting a whole bunch of stories together like that. Yes.
It would be a first-hand view. Yeah, what I wrote was fiction, but this could be much more personal, I think, for them.
Yes.
All right. We have a question from Helen. Go to Helen Waite on X. What motivated you to dedicate your life to helping former inmates re-enter society successfully?
To be candid, I don't consider myself necessarily a bleeding heart. I'm not a liberal. In many ways, I'm very conservative. But I'm also very aware of my own shortcomings. And I visited prison once, and I was so taken back by this idea of these men walking the halls, and they were only numbers. And I heard the doors slam, and I heard the echo in the halls, and I saw the cameras, and I saw the vacuous look in their eyes. I thought, what a hideous place this must be. And a chaplain asked me if I could take Reggie, the first resident, if he was coming out homeless, could you take him into our house? And that's what led to this. It was just a happenstance of, I didn't go looking, but it came to me, and it certainly changed my life.
Awesome. Got another question here that popped up. I know more on Google. In today's society, recidivism remains very high. What do you believe is missing from current reintegration program, and how does Good Samaritan Home fill that gap?
Good Samaritan Home was a direct result of the recidivism issues that were running 60 and 70%, particularly in places like California, turnstile in prison. And Ohio developed research out of the University of Cincinnati saying that we need to put rehabilitation into the community, that people do best, low-risk offenders do best in the community. So they started looking for ways to reintegrate people rather than reincarcerate. But that meant you had to prepare, and that meant you had to have housing, and you had to have reentry support. And so we became part of that Ohio plan. And a recidivism rate in Ohio has dropped, I believe, down into the 30s. So it's definitely has worked, because it makes sense that if you're in the family and working, you have a better chance of staying out of prison because you're doing the right things. And if you're in prison, all you have time to do is think about how angry you are. And so it's a no-brainer, and it's working in Ohio, at least.
Have any other states tried to model off what you're doing?
I'm sure, but I'm not aware of them.
Okay.
Yeah, particularly coming out of the Reagan years, there was a lock 'em up attitude, and that's why prison populations tripled over 30 years. And under George Bush, there was a move back. George Bush had the conservative, compassionate conservatism, and we were part of that movement of faith-based initiatives trying to help in a very practical way. And I do know in Dayton, there were 20 other nonprofits like ours doing similar work, but they all disappeared over the past several years. And I think that's because of the commitment of my staff and my board. We've worked very, very hard to run an above-board relationship with the state. And it's worked out very well. We have I think, an excellent reputation for being accountable to our contract.
Okay. All right. Another question. How do you see the role of storytelling, like your novel, in creating social change and fostering empathy in today's divided world?
Wow, that's an excellent question. I remember when I was during the conflict, I went to the city hall in the city council, and there were angry people all around me. And I had a ream of documents. I had data showing all this that we're talking about recidivism. And I presented all that, and the look on their face was, I don't give a damn. They didn't care because data did not matter. So what I determined to do was, just like the story about Jimmy resonates more than any data that I could present. So I wrote this novel. It's not necessarily about Good Samaritan Home, but it's about second chances. And the idea was to make the story so personal, make it so emotional, that people would identify with it and they would feel compassionate to somebody who's struggling with addictions or struggling with their own bad choices. And it's worked. The feedback on Google is it's gotten 5-star ratings 90% of the time. So on Amazon. So the people that I'm hearing from are saying they get it, they understand it, and that's why I'm not selling the book to make money. I'm selling it to generate this conversation. I want people talking about second chances so that we can diffuse the anger in our country right now. That's my goal.
Yes, because there are a lot of angry people out there.
I haven't seen this since 1968. It reminds me a great deal of what we lived through. And I don't want this generation to go through what I did afterward. I want to help my grandkids so that they have a degree of stability that I never had.
And is the turmoil that you went through in the 60s, is that kind of what's kind of shaping this and kind of driving you toward the empathy and the, being nice to other people and trying to foster that niceness and civility between people?
Now, I have to be fair. My wife says at times I'm not very nice. My staff concurs because I can be a real grump. But I think having been homeless myself, having struggled to make the right choices, having struggled to provide for my family, my son read my journal notes from a section when he was 6 years old, and he said, "I never realized we struggled so much with money." And the good news is that my children have become far more stable than me. They went into a job. My son's a police sergeant, and my daughter's a business executive, and they've been in the same houses and the same jobs for 25 years. And by all definitions, they're very successful. So I think that if I've done one thing right, I've given them a starting point that was better than mine.
Good. That's all any of us ever want for our children, is to have things better than we had them.
Now, I will tell you this, though. My son says that he has a cop. He locks him up, and I bring him home.
Well, it kind of becomes a family business.
Yeah, it's a self-perpetuating circle.
Yes, we kind of have that in my family. I have one daughter that's a nurse and another daughter that's a mortician.
Oh, that's funny. The jokes are too easy.
Oh, yes, they are. They are.
Now, the good news though, about a mortician, I will say this about morticians. They're the last people to ever let you down.
There you go.
That is correct.
Amen.
That is correct.
Now, that was a free joke, and you get it's worth every dime.
Well, if I tell that to my daughter, that will get labeled as a dad joke, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's where they go.
Got another question that popped. I tell you what, Misfit Nation, you are on it tonight with the questions. This is from Jimmy Not Sausage Dean on Google. You talk about developing calloused hands and a tender heart. How do you balance resilience and compassion in your personal and professional life?
I just had this conversation for 2 hours yesterday with one of my staff, because he is what I call a vice principal. He's much more strict, and I need that to be doing the day-to-day work. And we are constantly, though, wrestling with, where does the law end and where do people begin? Where do we say, no, you can't do that, but yes, you can have one more chance? And statistically, addicts need 7 times to overcome an addiction and rehabilitation. So you're going to fail. So I'm constantly having conversations with my staff and my wife. My wife tends to she's Irish Catholic, and she likes to be more precise, shall we say. And I'm always saying, let's give them one more chance. But what I've learned to do with my work is I feedback from my staff, because they're boots on the ground. So if I give somebody one more chance, I want to make sure that's a smart thing to do, not just a compassionate thing to do. Okay. In the Bible, we say you have to be gentle as doves, but wise as serpents.
Yes. Yes. So as somebody who has, I'm going to say, done it all, what's your best advice for someone who wants to start over late in their career?
I'll give you an example. I was in San Antonio, and there was an ad in the paper, said Harrison Ford program television series 1923 was looking for walk-on actors. I'm not an actor. I'm 76 years old. And I said, what the heck? So I put my name in, set my picture with my best Stetson hat on, and they hired me. So I drove up to Austin, got fitted out for this program in a 1923 suit, got my hair trimmed to look like the part. And I had a ponytail at the time, so I had to cut that. And I was all set to be in a television show. And they cut my part, they cut my scene. But they paid me $32.35 for my day in Austin. So technically, I'm an actor. But here's the point. Here's the point. I'm not an actor by persuasion or personality. I don't like the acting business. It's terrible business. But I wanted to try something different and stretch. So if you want to start something, if you want to go somewhere, take a different road tomorrow. That's the first step. Try a different menu at the restaurant. Try a different restaurant. Try something new. Go outside your comfort zone. And if you want to start a business, I would say do your homework, because I guarantee you won't make money at it initially. Absolutely. We were 5 years to turn any sort of income on Good Samaritan Home. So I had no salary. But today, obviously, we're able to pay for 10 staff and 19 houses. But it took a lot of work. So I would say get a lot of good advice and be willing. And here's the key: be willing to take risks, but think through them. Because if we didn't take risk, we would never have gotten our second house, and maybe not our first. But we did, and the end product was it. We've been able to help 2,500 people with it.
That's that number still astounds me. That's amazing. That is amazing. And I'm sure you've had more successes than failures. And it's
we define success very simply as we offer you in the beginning 90 days, and sometimes it'll be longer, and the average stay is a year. But we offer it to you, and we want you to find a job. But if you don't find a job because you refuse to look, that's on you, not on us. So as long as you did what we asked and kept your house part clean and didn't cause my staff a problem, you're a success, and you stayed out of jail. So now what you did after us, I can't control.
Yes.
So I like to say that we're riding short ponies, so we always shoot low.
So we always ask everybody that's on here three tips or three things that you do every morning that's non-negotiable, that, or to start your day, or three tips that you have for people out there listening. Take your pick of which one you want to do, and let us know.
Well, at my age, my ego writes more checks than my body can cash. So I make sure that I get up in the morning, do my exercises, and mostly just stretching. You see the wall behind me of the mountains. That's where I go climbing. And it's because I've been able to keep, not fit, but I've been able to keep loose enough to keep my joints moving. And I try to eat healthy, which is real basic. But then I try to make sure that I keep myself focused on what has to be done today. Because most of my days are spent either at the computer or alone writing. So it'd be very easy to drift. So I set a schedule in the morning, and even though I may have to change it, at least I started off on the schedule, and I can look at it and say, I did this, this, and this. So discipline, self-discipline, I think, is a very important part of not just being an entrepreneur, but it's a part of being healthy. I have my friends who are much younger than me who watch television all day, and I think they've aged prematurely because of that. So I try to avoid those things as much as possible.
I completely understand. I completely understand. Well, John, first of all, bless you for what you do. This is a great endeavor. Thank you for doing this.
Actually, this has been a great time for me tonight. And just for the record, I lived in Frankfort, Kentucky for, I think, 2 years. So it's a beautiful state and a beautiful town.
I like Frankfurt because that is where the nectar of the gods is made.
Yeah, you're not talking about Coca-Cola.
No, but there are some sacrilegious people out there that mix it with Coca-Cola.
But you could say it is Coca-Cola.
We always knew when the corn was brewing because you could smell it coming right down the Kentucky River, and it was the smell of yeast was phenomenal. I would get a buzz, and I don't drink.
Yes.
And I just want to mention, thank you for releasing the cheat code on getting a book out. Start your own publishing company, because we have people in the group that write books and they have a hard time. They're like, okay, so now all you do is open up your own publishing company to publish your book.
I've had to work
That was a good
very
cheat
hard
code you
with the
told us
publishing
about.
end of it. Publishing is most books I've learned. The average book sells less than 250 copies in a lifetime. Most of them don't sell. So I, by those standards, I've been very, very successful, but I've worked hard at it. And what I want to do with those awards is I want to send them all to New York and say, take that, cowboy. All those people.
I was going to ask you about that. And yeah, it would be nice to kind of turn your nose at all the people that told you no.
Well, it's like John Kennedy said, the best revenge is living well.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to do. And these conversations, I'm having a ball with these because we're talking about what I feel to be substantive issues, but we're having fun.
Oh, yeah.
And the questions I think are great. That's a wonderful, wonderful tool.
Hey, I tell you what, the Misfit Nation did not let us down this evening. I want to thank you all for the questions. You kept up a steady stream of them. Thank you very much.
Well, let me say this, if I may. If somebody wants to reach me beyond this, my website is johndavidgraham.com, and there's a contact link. Just send me an email. I'm glad to talk to you.
All right. And Misfit Nation, remember the name of the book by John David Graham is Running as Fast as I Can. Get out there, get the book, show this man some love. And again, thank you for joining us this evening.
My pleasure, gentlemen. I would say you've been as scholars and gentlemen, but since we have videos here, so people see that you're not scholars and gentlemen.
Don't tell anybody that.
Yeah.
Don't be starting stories now.
Yeah, we need to go to audio only.
Hey, Mama always said I got a face made for radio.
Oh, I understand it perfectly. Oh, listen, I had a ball, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. It was a great chat. Good night, Misfit Nation.
Thank you for tuning in. And as always, we love you, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Peace out.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Did you serve in the military? If so, you can obtain a free lifetime pass to more than 2,000 federal recreation sites. These sites are located across more than 400 million acres of public lands, including national parks, wildlife refuges, and forests. The lands host activities to fit any lifestyle: hiking, biking, fishing, camping, and much more. Gold Star families are also eligible for these free lifetime passes. Plus, they cover entrance fees for a driver and all passengers in a car, or up to 3 additional adults at sites that charge per person. Obtaining
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling, because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.